And I know that he has probably like a 2023 custom built Ford F350 or something like that he just bought last year. I'm sure the monthly payments on that are not very cheap. He also has like a boat, but it's registered under his son's name because of his arrears and his child support. They won't allow him to have his license. I'm sure that there is probably a bank account or something that is under his son's name as well, trying to kind of be sneaky with the ways of his business so it doesn't show that he makes that much.
In the matter of Jessica Jensen versus Zachariah Larrison. We are on for a motion to modify child support. Any opening statements you wish to make?
No.
Mr. Schwartz?
Your Honor, I'm not sure, and Ms. Harper can correct me, but we have had communications. I think, at least, I don't know that there's a big issue. There's some slight difference in income, and I think that can be addressed based on the pay stub. And there's a tax adjustment question, or Ms. Jensen, I believe, has been claiming the child every year. So Mr. Larrison should be entitled to an adjustment there. And then there's a multifamily adjustment that Mr. Larrison has a child from another relationship that there's currently a child support order on that says he's to pay her child support. But some time ago, that child came to live with Mr. Larrison, that nobody's ever modified the custody order or the child support order. I don't think there's any enforcement of it. I think he still has arrears on that. It's a Rollins County. It was a Rooks County case, now a Rollins County case. And we're in the process of trying to deal with that. It's not been addressed yet. But I think that's the only issue or the biggest issue is whether he gets that multifamily, because the guidelines state that the court shouldn't give it to him if the child's part of an existing child support order or something to that effect. But I think that intends that, if he was actually.
I agree, Your Honor. There's just a slight disagreement regarding Ms. Jensen's income. And then the multiple family adjustment, which guidelines do say the court must not grant the multiple family adjustment if there's a court order with the child, which technically there is, but in all practically there isn't. So that's probably a best question for the court. And then in the DRA, Ms. Jensen said they alternated claiming on the child. If she has claimed the child every year, then I'd agree that a tax adjustment is appropriate.
I also do have 2 boys that I pay child support for as well. So I didn't know if that made a difference. I also have that modification coming up at the end of the month.
What county do you pay?
Ellis.
You know the case number?
It is 22 DM. I look it up on the Kansas payment thing, so it's different. 054, I think, is the last one.
And who's the other party?
Michael Geist. Yeah, because I have garnishments that come out from my paychecks for them. And then I alternate taxes with him. But that's all in our court papers.
Mr. Schwartz, how would you like to proceed?
I think the easy thing is, well, I mean, there's a couple easy things. One is if she's been claiming every year and she wants to continue, well, I think whether she does or doesn't, I think that's the question. We only received her 23 tax return. I know we've got my clients last 3 or 20, 21 and 22 don't have 23, but he hasn't claimed the child in those years. So I think if she has, then.
Your audio is breaking up, Mr. Schwartz.
Is that better?
That's better.
Okay, sorry, I'm on a backup computer. My other one's having problems. So, but I think if she's claimed every year, then that should resolve that issue as far as whether he gets that adjustment. The other, we did send the exhibits. I believe it's exhibit, where is it here? Sorry. Her pay stub is exhibit A, which reflects her income year to date through August 9th. And I mean, our number we calculated was basically taking that total number, dividing it by the 222 days that it expired since that period, or since that August 9th, and which and then dividing or multiplying that times 365, which gets us to 39,881. I think her amount's calculated based on taking her base hourly rate and multiplying it times 40 hours a week. She does have there's some other payments that she receives, it looks like on there, overtime being one of those. But at least our position would be, and we can have testimony on that if we need to, but my position would be that being 8 months into the year, 7+ is a pretty representative sample of somebody's work year. But I mean, however you want to proceed, Judge. I think it's their motion, so they probably have to put on the evidence, but.
Ms. Harper.
I do think it'd be most appropriate to use the base wage. As court's aware of guidelines, overtime is only used when it's regular and ongoing. So an hour of overtime here, an hour of overtime there isn't enough to qualify overtime as income.
And on the base wage, it looks like that comes out to yearly income of 38,188.
Yes, Your Honor.
189, but yeah.
Yeah, 38,189.
And it's kind of shows like it's only showing that Zach makes minimum wage, which I don't see as true because he's owned his own business since 2015.
Well, first let's deal with your income and get that nailed down, okay?
Okay.
Okay. So how are you wanting that adjusted, Mr. Schwartz?
Well, I mean, we basically just took when you look at her pay stub, she's got regular earnings, overtime, InstaPay, ref, DISC, taxed, PROT, PTO used, W plus member gross, PTO pay, bereavement. There are all those different categories. I mean, I'm assuming she used all of those because they show up on her pay stub for the year to date. What those amount to and what should be included, if we were in January or February or March, early in the year, some of those can get skewed quite a bit, especially, but overtime only amounts to $117 for the year. So, it is the $1,700 is a pretty big swing with those others in there. So maybe she can answer what those are. I don't know what most of those are.
Like the Walmart Plus is just kind of one of my benefits from work, I believe. And then InstaPay is like I kind of get my paycheck a little bit early. I can request part of it of what hours I have worked to cover bills that randomly come up and everything. Can't wait until the next paycheck. So I have the ability to kind of prepay myself. And that's what those are. PPTO is just, paid time off where I left an hour early or whatever, but I still have coverage for it. Those kind of things. Bereavement, grandma passed away, so I wasn't there. Child support, and then there's also like a $5 processing fee every paycheck out of what gets garnished out of my child support. I'm not sure what all else is on there. I don't have it right in front of me. And I also have been claiming Riley every year on taxes, but he's also had arrears each year. And they always say that they were going to withhold his taxes like they have mine. And I don't think that's ever happened in the 14 years.
Okay. If we looked at the 38,189 for the first 8 months, that should be at 25,586, and she's not there. She's only at 21,812.
But that's 7 months. She worked 9 days. It's 9 days into August, so it's
pretty close. That times 7.24 months is 23,000. She's at 22,000, so that's pretty close. So that's appropriate to put her income at 38,189 for the year. Ms. Jensen, are you wanting to continue claiming the child every year?
Yes.
Okay, then he'll get a deduction for your claiming the child each year.
Okay.
Okay, and now as far as Mr. Larrison's income, Ms. Harper.
Your Honor, we did receive the W-2s that were provided today. as it was stated earlier, he does own his own business. However, even looking at that information, his net profit from 2022 after all expenses taken is just under $50,000. So it does appear that his income would need to be modified on the worksheet as well. And the page I'm looking at is page 54 of Exhibit C.
Mr. Schwartz.
Your Honor, that's a 22 return and he is self-employed, but that's what he made in 22. I'm not sure. I know they were working on their 23 return. They were granted an extension. And so, I mean, obviously that would be 22 income, but I mean, generally speaking, you're going to use an average of income and not just a 1 year on a self-employed individual, because it's not something where you do the same work. He's in construction, so it's based on what work he's hired for. And so 1 year could be significantly different than the next. I wasn't aware that we were going to have an issue about his income or there was an issue raised. So if there is, I guess we'll need to put on evidence about his income and go through his 3 years of tax returns and potentially get 23. I think they just messaged me that they got it back last week. I don't have the 23 yet, so.
Do you want to go in a breakout room and talk to him about the 23 tax?
I'm going to see if he can email it to me, but I mean, if I don't have it, it's not of much use, because if we're going to go through that, I don't know if because then we have the same problem with Miss Harper, that is she going to want to just take our word for it, or is she going to want to study it as well? Email it to me. I'm trying to pull them up here, so. Zach, if you sent those, I still haven't received them, so.
Mr. Larrison, did you send the 23 to your?
Yes, sir. They were sent on August the 8th.
To us or to you?
It would have come from Brooklyn at az-custom.com.
You said that she sent them to us on that date?
Yes.
I think I have that. Let me double check, make sure they're not somewhere else in here. I think they were in my junk email, so they must have got flagged with the attachment, so.
Do we need to resend it?
I know I have them now. It might be, now that I have them, Judge, it might be good to put us in a breakout room, and Jennifer, I'll send you a copy of them while we're doing that.
Jess, can you put Mr. Schwartz and Mr. Larrison in a breakout room?
I know that he's also
Hang on. You have to wait till all the parties are back, okay?
okay.
Mr. Schwartz.
Judge, I had an opportunity to meet with my client. I wanted to clarify a couple things. Mr. Larrison and I, when we talked, he wasn't aware of, and we had it cleared up, but there is a court order out of that Rollins County case giving him custody. And also he's paying towards arrears, but there's an order that I haven't seen it, but I'm told that there's an order that says there is no child support owed except for towards the arrears that he's paying.
Okay.
So I think that issue is resolved. As to his income, in 20, he lost $14,095. 21, he lost $2,425. 22, he had a profit of $50,376. And in 23, it was he was at zero. One thing to note in there, he probably would have been at a loss this year as well, but had he taken the loss, then he would have lost that. He had some depreciation for vehicles placed into service. He had about $130,000 of expenditures for vehicles that are 5-year makers qualified, which is essentially a 6-year depreciation period. And so they took $7,200 of that and did Section 179 instead of, it's basically about 1/5, but if you'd taken 1/5, it'd have been a much bigger number than that, and he would have had a loss. So there was a carryover of depreciation for vehicles placed into service in prior years of $23,000. So, I mean, again, over the last 4 years, he's netted $33,856. He does pay himself a salary of $24,000 a year. And so we agree that that's his salary. In those years that he makes extra money, he does make more money. But in those years that he loses money, he loses it. So that's why we didn't object. With the 24, we didn't object on that, but I can't remember the number that she had listed. It was slightly higher than 24 even.
Go back through that again on 2020. He had a minus
Um,
21.
minus $2,425
22.
plus 50,376,
And 23.
even.
Greg, are those the net profit numbers that you used?
Yes, the tentative profit, correct.
Okay.
I mean,
So-
that would be, and he had his 24,000 that he made.
So I will point out that per the guidelines, depreciation, which is one of the expenses that was counted, does not apply for child support income unless it's shown that it was necessary to make income during the year.
Well, no business expenses are allowed unless you can show that. And I mean, that's the concern I have here, Judge, is so generally, I mean, we would go through, when I do these, I convert all section 179 to makers and have it, so that way there's no 1 year spikes, because that's not really fair to, the receiving party if you have, somebody's buying things. But I think we could go through, if the court wants us to, and look at his depreciation schedule from the 23 return, and which I did prior to, or when we were in the breakout room. And I mean, the items purchased, I can go through those with him and have him testify about how those are used and so on.
So based on, he pays himself 24,000, which I assume he is showing as a business expense, or is it a salary paid out?
We're gonna look.
It won't show on any of those taxes because we started in January of 2024.
Yeah, he's got contract labor and wages, but they're not his, so.
So on your 4 returns, as you're showing them, his average profit is 8,466.
I've got 8464, but that's close enough.
Okay, so you add that takes him up to 32,466.
Except for this year that, I mean, and who knows what 24 will bring, but the 24 wasn't in prior years. It was only this year, so.
Well, again, that's a 4-year average. And that's a.
But the 24,000 is not an expense in that 4-year average is all I'm saying, Judge.
Okay,
So, I mean, I see what you're doing and I understand. I just want to make sure that everybody's aware.
right. So that would put his income at 32,466.
Judge, I do have a question.
What is your question?
When did he start his business?
And Zach, when did you start it?
2015.
Thank you, Judge. I just wanted to make sure one of the taxes wasn't a lot of startup expenses.
So Ms. Harper, we could either go with his income at the 32,466 or set a hearing to delve in and figure out his income. But if those are if that's what he's telling the government, that's pretty compelling.
Can I say something?
You may.
I know that he also has like a boat, but it's registered under his son's name because of his arrears and his child support. They won't allow him to have his license, but I'm sure that there is probably a bank account or something that is under his son's name as well, trying to kind of be sneaky with the ways of his business so it doesn't show that he makes that much. And I know that he has probably like a 2023 custom built Ford F350 or something like that he just bought last year. I'm sure the monthly payments on that are not very cheap, but that again would probably go towards business.
One consideration, Mr. Schwartz, if part of that depreciation on the vehicles is a vehicle he drives and he drives that business vehicle in his personal life, then that should be attributed to his income.
Well, and the concern I have, Judge, is that, I mean, we're getting into a whole bunch of what ifs, and they you're right. And I I would have had all that had I known we were gonna argue about his income, which has not been raised previous to today. That if we were gonna fight about that, I would have had all of those things here prepared and ready to address, because that's fine if he has a truck that is a company truck, but if he, and the question becomes, I don't know how his accountant treats it. Most won't deduct all of the expenses off of it. They'll do like 75 or 80%. Because that's what the IRS allows generally. And so, but I haven't had that opportunity to run down that and see what that is.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We can either take at face value his tax returns and set his income at 32,466, or we can schedule a hearing and delve into it. Your preference, Ms. Harper?
Judge, may I speak with the mother in a breakout room?
You may. Jess, could you put Ms. Harper and Ms. Jensen into a breakout room?
Can you do the same with us after that, Jess? Thank you.
And then Mr. Schwartz and Mr. Larrison into a breakout room.
Well, I think she was going to talk to, we're all right. My client's all right with those numbers. I calculated it at 245, 240 support, $5 enforcement. And he does owe arrears. He's willing to pay just $400 a month. So the difference being applied towards arrears. And if we need to address the vehicles and all that stuff, I can, but I guess I'll wait and see what Ms. Harper has to say.
Ms. Harper.
I did speak with Ms. Jensen. And as always, I started by explaining that I represent DCF. I do not necessarily represent her.
Right.
And with speaking with her, it seems like she is wanting to look at hiring specific counsel because there are issues outside of child support that may also come up.
Well, and that can be done, and that certainly can have a future hearing, but as far as setting current support.
So she is opposed to the number that was suggested. And
Okay.
she's wanting full hearing with going into details on those numbers.
Okay. In looking back at the history of this, what number, I think currently there was a worksheet proposed on June 10th. Was that ever put into place?
No.
So you're still working off the April of 18 at 222?
Yes, Your Honor, that's current support.
Okay. Ms. Jensen, how long will it take you to secure counsel and file a motion?
I'm not sure. I can try to call today and get things going right away.
I would be inclined to modify it based on these numbers, and then after the hearing, it can also always be modified again. But I think these numbers will get us a closer child support number than what we're at.
Okay.
You understand that?
Yes.
So you can hire an attorney, you can go to your attorney, you can decide if you want to file a motion to try to modify the support based on them looking at the returns and the information you provide your attorney.
Okay.
I think we'll be closer if we use these numbers now, and that way we're not dealing with so much arrearage.
Right.
Okay. You understand that?
Yes.
Well, Judge, if you change the child support, she's going to have a material change in circumstances to modify it again. So, I guess if we're going to go litigate this and we're going to go dump all that money, we're entitled to, we agreed to get this done.
Mr. Schwartz, her attorney will look at that. The attorney she takes all this information to will look at that, and they'll decide if they believe that they can show that it's materially different than what this comes out to. Okay, I did not run the numbers. I don't know if Ms. Harper ran the numbers on Bradley.
So I have the numbers up, Your Honor, though I would like to double check on how much you are wanting to put for his income.
Well, on her income, 38,189. His income, 32,466. She is going to take the tax deduction every year for the child. Okay. And I don't have a case number to know what case Mr. Larrison said he's no longer owing support on. When you're talking about the multifamily adjustment, Mr. Schwartz, are you still wanting to claim that?
Yes.
Do you have a case number that
Um,
we can look at to make sure that he's not paying support on that child?
It's Rollins County 2024 DM2.
24 DM 22. Okay. We'll look at that. Ms. Harper can look at it. I'll take a look at it. Assuming that's correct with the multifamily discount, where does that leave us, Ms. Harper?
Your Honor, are you also wanting to give the mother a deduction for the support she pays on other children?
We have to go back and look at that case. How much are you paying in support, Ms. Jensen?
It is $426 monthly. Every 2 weeks out of my paycheck, I get $196.69 garnished.
Yes, Judge, and I've confirmed that on our system, and that is case 22 DM 54.
22 DM 54 Ellis County?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so put that in.
I mean, is she entitled to have a deduction for support paid to increase child support? I don't think she is.
But it affects her income.
It does, but it doesn't, I mean, her income's her income. You don't get to raise his support because she's paying child support for other kids that aren't his.
Well, Your Honor, I believe that is something that was changed in the most recent guidelines. I'm not seeing that restriction in there anymore, but admittedly, I just pulled it up and I don't have the guidelines completely memorized, but section 3B for child support paid just says other obligations cases must be deducted to the extent that the support obligations are actually paid.
Right. So if she's on an income withholding, that would decrease her income.
Yes, sir. And regarding the other aspect, she is making those payments. So I do think it's appropriate to apply it.
And the reality on these guidelines, with or without, I don't think it's going to make much difference when we adjust her income that little up or down.
Up,
makes much
up
of
it doesn't. When you go down, it does.
So run it, giving her credit, run it without giving her credit. Let's see what the difference is. I don't think it's going to be much.
So with the credit, the total amount is $355 per month. Out the credit, $356 per month.
It's $1 difference.
But it's not, Judge. I mean, this is the problem. The way we're doing this is we're going to make an order based on something I can't even see. Based on mom's allegations that dad has a boat and gives money to his son.
We're not doing that, Mr. Schwartz. His income is based on his 4 years of his business. The 4-year average of income is $8,466. That's his 4-year average. Add that to the $24,000 he pays himself salary, takes him to the $32,466. Her salary is based on her hourly wage times 2080 a year. The only difference is, she pays a child support. If you deduct that, it doesn't make much difference. In this case, it'll make about $1 difference because the Bradley is designed to look more at the person paying rather than the person receiving. So putting that in there isn't going to make much difference for her either way.
I have 238, Judge.
We're simply putting in his 4-year average income.
Okay, but so the question I have is I've got 238. Whose number are you going to use? Hers at 385 or 50 some, or mine at 238?
What Bradley program are you using?
I have the latest, greatest updated version.
Okay.
I can give you
I
the.
apologize. Double checking it. I put in that he has custody, but didn't actually check the box to apply multiple family. So I do apologize for that.
Okay. What do you come up with?
So with her support being added, it is 238.
What number did you use for support?
426.
Okay.
It's her monthly obligation and she's up to date on it, so.
So I just want to make sure I have the same numbers.
So you come up with what, Ms. Harper?
Sorry, so without it is 240. And with it is 238.
Yeah, it only makes a $2 difference. And that's been my experience with Bradley. It makes a big difference on his side of the ledger because he's the one who owes the obligation. It doesn't make a whole lot of difference on her side of the ledger when you run them through.
Changes the reimbursement for health insurance.
So let's use the 240 number.
What number are we using?
240.
Is that what you have, Ms. Harper?
Yes, that is the one that is.
It should be 243 is what I have. It's 238, but there's an enforcement fee in Ellis County, which is $5. So, I mean, that,
Enforcement fee is for the trustee's office.
well, I understand, but it's a mandated order, isn't it? Unless the parties agree not to ask for it.
Well, if it tacks onto that, it tacks onto it, but the base obligation amount is 240.
I've got 238. I don't know, and that's what she said she had. I don't know what changed.
Well, we ran it both ways. I'm giving her credit for the child support she pays.
Right. I've got the income numbers we've been through, he gets the multifamily, she gets credit for the support she pays, and he gets the credit for her claiming the child every year, which is 230.
You update the income tax amount, that
It's
does
157.
change. Yeah, but that changes whether or not she gets credit.
What do you mean it changes? I'm not sure I follow you.
So
Well,
if you child support
put in
paid,
that-
Right. That's where it's at.
then the income tax credit is different than if there's nothing in that section.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. And it goes to the adjustment's now 157 instead of 145, right? What number do you have?
Okay, so if she's given a credit, it actually goes to 238, which I'll admit is a little unusual that his obligation goes down when she's given credit.
And that's the same number I have, plus a $5 enforcement fee if the court's going to assess it, which I think we need to be clear, because if not, they'll take it out regardless, unless we
Well,
have an order that specifically says it's
The
not.
court needs to assess it. That's just the way it works. So 238 and 243. Okay, so that'll be as of the motion to modify the child support, which was that was filed June, I believe. Yeah, so effective July 1st. Okay. Again, Ms. Jensen, you're certainly welcome to take all the information, talk to an attorney. If you believe that these numbers are way off, certainly file your motion and we'll delve into it.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Anything further than today? Ms. Harper,
Don't believe so, Your Honor.
anything further today, Mr. Schwartz?
No, Your Honor.
Anything else for the record, Ms. Harper?
No, sir.
Anything else for the record, Mr. Schwartz?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Harper, you'll prepare the order?
Yes,
and
sir.
the worksheet?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Thank you all,
Thank you, Judge.
and we
Yeah.
are adjourned.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You